married people of Reddit, what was the moment that made you go? We had fish at a restaurant for dinner. Didn't sit well with me, and by the time we were back at his apartment my stomach and bowels were raging. I was so embarrassed that I was spending half the evening in his bathroom, so he told me about the time he accidentally shit himself at a 7-Eleven. Keeper. My then boyfriend and I had taken my wheelchair-bound brother to dinner and a movie. When we got home I went to use the bathroom before going through the routine of getting my brother changed, meds, and into bed. I came out of the bathroom to him getting my brother out of the chair and onto the bed to change, all the while hilarious messing up to make my brother laugh hysterically. I came right in to help, but boyfriend shooed me away to do it all himself. It took triple the time, but they were both in stitches, turning a usually admittedly mundane routine into a ton of fun. We'll have been married 11 years on the 22nd of this month. I hear this question a lot, and I never have an answer, because I think one day you just come to the realization that living any part of your life without them would be awful. I got married not because I was madly in love, but because I wanted her to experience all of life's highs and lows with me. I wanted to watch her succeed and grow as a person. I don't believe in soulmates, but I do believe in making a relationship work because it brings you joy. I had appendicitis. I had just come around from surgery, and my mom, dad and now husband were there. We had been friends for years and had just started seeing each other, both still very worried in case it went wrong. Well, I was still groggy from the anesthetic, but it was a woman's only ward so they couldn't stay. But I didn't want him to leave. I was so afraid. No idea why. Maybe the drugs I'd. The look on his face as they let him out broke my heart. That's when I knew that man would always be there for me. I mouthed "I love you" for the first time as he walked away. Been together 7 years now and married for 4. I love that man. I was in the hospital delivering our first child. We were young parents at 20 and had only been together 2 years. Not yet married or stable financially. I'm ugly, swollen, exhausted, terrified, covered in various fluids and dangerously unsure of my partner. He's been great through the pregnancy. He found a decent job, is working on getting us settled, but how long will he stick around? Babies are hard and inconvenient and not much fun. I am so afraid that I will be doing this alone eventually. And then he looks at me. I see it. I see determination, love, resolution, and quiet joy, all while dealing with stuff that should be accompanied with a hazmat suit. I make no exaggeration when I say it clicked for me in that moment. It wasn't romantic or witty or cute. It was dirty, and messy, and unplanned, and that was my "this is it" moment. I was already in love, but this was where I found faith in us. That faith has weathered us through 2 children, 14 years, 4 health crises, 3 moves, financial upheaval, and a messy wonderful life together. We were at a low moment, lots of bickering and stupid fights. I was still making her lunch every morning before she went to grad school, but it was a rough time in our relationship, and then I realized I never wanted to be fighting with anyone else. I wanted to work through our problems and spend my life with her, so we did. We've got 2 kids, and life is really good. All relationships have crisis moments. Find someone worth getting through those moments. My wife is a strong, independent woman who don't need no man, which I personally love how she wants to do and think for herself. But this also means she has lots of walls and won't let anyone in and always has to be a badass at all times. But in private I can make her blush and smile at will. It's a side of her nobody knows about but me, and I love it. Oh man. Besides the fact he was amazing with my kids, we were 9 months into casually dating when my doctor told me he thought I had cancer and was sending me for testing to confirm. I sent him a text that said something like, "Hey, they think I have cancer. I can't do casual while going through this, so this is your opportunity to walk away. No hard feelings." he replied. "I think this is something we should talk about face to face." I said, "It's not," because I thought he'd leave, but he didn't. He saw me then cancer not once, but twice, and with a great sense of humor each time. Plus, let's talk about how great he is with the kids. We don't always see eye to eye, but he's willing to learn and grow. The other day he argued with my oldest and came back to our room and said, "I just wish I knew the right thing to say all of the time." It wasn't about changing the kid, but improving himself to meet their needs. We were out swimming at the lake, and there was a ladybug in the water. He carefully picked it up and let it sit on his shoulder until it was dry enough to fly away. I've never met anyone who was so gentle with animals. His dog, my parents' diabetic cat who needed shots, friends' cats and dogs. It wasn't so much "this is it," as it was "oh, you're different than the others." We had known each other about 2 weeks and were out on a walk when I said, "Stop." We stopped walking and I continued, "Zombies are attacking from that direction. What do you do?" He thought for a second then asked if the zombies could swim. I said they can't swim but currents will cause them to wash up on shores. He then went into a detailed plan that just so happened to be damn near exact to my own plan in that situation. I had asked several others the same question and often heard differing variations of "seriously?" or "I don't know." That was the moment my now husband stood out from the rest. Literally the first minute I saw her on Skype during a job interview. I can't explain how I knew in that moment, but I knew. Backstory: I was a mid-level manager, hiring for a position in Alaska. We conducted most of our interviews on Skype or by phone. As soon as her face came on the screen, I was absolutely flustered. I almost didn't give her the job, because I was afraid of doing something stupid around her and getting fired. But in the end, she was the most qualified candidate, so I resolved to be professional and keep my hands off. Less than a month later, she couldn't keep her hands off. A few months later, we both quit the job so our relationship would be less complicated. 8 years later, we're still together, coming up on our 3rd wedding anniversary. Obligatory. Don't do what we did. It was dumb and we're lucky it worked out. When our first phone call lasted over 8 hours, we both had so much to share with one another. I flew out to see him within a month. I quit my job of 11 years and moved to his city the following month. We have been together almost 9 years now, and he's still my favorite person to talk to. We had been dating for less than 3 months when my beloved childhood cat died at the age of 19. I told him I wanted to just be with my mom that night. The next morning he was there, comforting me over a cat he had met once. He's never had a cat as a pet but still said all the right things. We've been married more than 20 years. We have 3 cats and a bunny that all run through our house. My then girlfriend and I were sitting on the couch one evening just talking. I don't even remember what we were talking about, probably something stupid, but I was struck by the sudden realization that there was no place I'd rather be. Just being with her, talking about serious topics or nothing at all, is perfect, and there's no place I'd rather be than with her. There are 2. The first was when I knew I loved him. I'm a fairly picky eater and I have a pretty significant food allergy. On our 3rd date, my now spouse was cooking for us in his apartment and I didn't know what he was going to make. It turned out to be a lentil and squash stew. I don't eat legumes. I don't eat squash. But I ate what he made without a third thought. First 2 were, 1, new. 2, I don't eat lentils or squash. And then we watched a movie on his couch. I don't fall asleep in movies, and I don't fall asleep in unfamiliar settings. I fell asleep at his house, after eating a meal I don't like, and because I was sleeping, he carried me to his bed, tucked me in, and went to sleep on his couch. The second was when my grandmother told me I looked happier when he walked in a room. I knew I was happy and felt loved and all that jazz, but I didn't realize I would literally perk up and smile more, just because I saw him near me. We've been married just over a year, so although this has been the weirdest extended honeymoon ever, it's been wonderful. There wasn't one moment I just got tired of being her boyfriend and wanted to make it official. Plus, I wanted to call my daughter and not my girlfriend's daughter. Oh, this is perfect. I'm actually getting married today. I realized he was the one I wanted to spend the rest of my life with when I allowed my massive boundaries to come down for what felt like the first time ever. I never really allowed myself to be vulnerable with other people, because in the back of my mind I assumed they were going to hurt me. He never weaponized things that I've told him in the past, so I didn't need to have all my guards up all the time. And it feels really good to not worry about that. Not necessarily a single moment, but I realized that after little years of always looking for the next best thing, I was finally happy where I was with him. And then I realized that he started cooking foods the way I like them. Bacon is a little softer, meals aren't as spicy, and it hit me that I've never met anyone as considerate as him. I had always been vehemently opposed to cohabitation with the significant other, and marriage itself for that matter. This is a long story on its own, but the Cliff Notes version is that my wife was supposed to move into a new apartment with some friends a few months after we started dating, but it fell apart when the previous tenant refused to leave. Her only alternative was moving back in with her family, who she didn't have a great relationship with, so I suggested that she stay with me till she finds a new place. I thought I was just doing so to keep her out of a shitty situation, but as we got closer to her moving in, I started to get excited I was about it, which was completely unlike me. A few weeks later she found a place that she liked enough to apply for, and I realized that I didn't want her to leave. Luckily she felt the same way when I brought it up, and during that conversation, we both recognized and acknowledged that we were, in fact, absolutely fucking crazy about each other. 15 years and change later, plus the wedding I never thought I'd have, we're even crazier about each other. We drove across the country in a tiny car for a week and didn't have a single argument. Not to say we don't argue, because we do, but we were under a lot of stress during this trip and were completely supportive of each other. So when it comes down to it, we're a team. We've been together for 11 years. She poured me a bowl of cinnamon toast crunch without me asking when she poured herself a bowl, but waited until I came to the kitchen minutes later to pour the milk into my bowl, knowing the cereal would have been soggy by the time I got there. That's when I knew. Honestly, I don't think I ever had the moment. I met my wife in high school. We dated, went to the same college but broke up freshman year, still had the odd conversation here and there. Both got into serious relationships we, at the time, thought would be our future spouses. Those relationships ended around the same time and we reconnected. We both agree, had we not broken up at such a pivotal time in our lives, we wouldn't have been able to experience our individual lives in our early 20s and probably never would have made it in the long term. But having that distance and coming back together made us both realize we were perfect for each other. I married my best friend and we hit 7 years marriage this year. We were running late to go hang out with friends and ran to Walmart. On the way in, we noticed an elderly woman looking lost. He stopped to help her. Turns out she wasn't of sound mind and her son was looking for her. We helped get her to her car and kept her there until the son called again and we could tell him where we were. I knew that if he would blow off his friends just to help a stranger, that I was going to marry him. I could just be myself around them. It wasn't really just one moment, but many snuggles and conversations and being able to open up to another person. We went from best friends to engaged because we're both ASAP and haven't looked back. I told this story in our vows when we got married. On our first date, my now husband and I went parked in a structure before going to a few places downtown. We walked all around the city. My husband wanted to leave the parking ticket in the car, but I insisted we take it with us. He put it in his wallet, and by the time we got back to the car after our adventure-filled day, it was gone. It was basically blizzarding outside, and we were stuck there for nearly 2 hours while we tried to get out. We were going to pay for the whole day, but the machine ate my husband's credit card. It was a mess. I wasn't mad, though, or even remotely upset. I would have sat in that parking structure forever if it gave me more time with him. That night, I called my best friend and told her I'd met the man I was going to marry. I brought some new laces for my work boots and was struggling with threading them. My husband, we wasn't married at the time, took them from me and threaded both boots without saying a word, despite my boots stinking so badly that I could smell them from the other side of the room. He said he didn't mind. I knew then that I would have married him if he asked me, and a few years later, he did. I have depressive episodes that make me hate myself. There was one time, early in our relationship, that one hit me, and she was nothing but patient and caring. It blew my mind because normally my behavior during these is more cringe-inducing than sympathy-inducing. I had never experienced anything like it before then. We've been together for 7 years, married for 2, and I really feel like I've healed as a person by having her in my life. We've both grown in our careers and ability to handle anything that life throws our way, and it always feels like we're a team. The moment she knew was way funnier though. We were on our second date at a friend's band show and she was driving me home after having just met a few of my friends. I said something neither of us remember now, and she responded, "Holy shit, you're going to change my life, aren't you?" Before we met, he had dated another girl for 4 years, and they broke up because different life directions, not because of anything either of them did wrong. I was a little insecure at that time, wondering if he'd regret or change his mind. I asked him one day to describe the differences between me and her, hoping for a compliment. Of course, what he said floored me, and cemented my understanding of how he felt about me. "I'm not going to compare you because that wouldn't be fair to her." Never questioned it again. 25 years later, we're still going strong. I was in love with my wife before we even got together, so I certainly wanted it to go that far. I knew for sure that it would happen after we'd been living together for a month or 2. Everyone said it was gonna be an adjustment living together and we'd probably fight a lot, and actually made me nervous about it, but it was so easy and fun. She's hilarious and is my favorite person to hang out with, but we also respect each other's need for alone time without taking offense. First date with the wife-to-be, and I was trying to impress her by taking her to a semi-nice restaurant. Caribou's, small town, saw Nice's relative. On a Friday night, the line was coming out the door and looked to be an hour's wait. She turns to me and said, "Let's grab a pizza and some beer and go back to my place for a movie." Still having pizza, movie, beer date nights 10 years later. I was dating a few men at the time. They all knew I was not monogamous, and I was headed into a restaurant with one just as another one texted me. The person I was with could tell by my facial expressions that it was another dude I was seeing, and he said, "I am not jealous because you've always been honest with me, and we're just dating, but I really feel like you are someone I want to grow with and get serious with. I don't feel like I could do that if you were seeing other people. Would you like to talk about being exclusive?" So we talked about it over dinner. He was so respectful, honest, and open to communicate. I had already liked him a lot. We have the same wicked sense of humor, and we had the same values and goals, so it wasn't a huge leap. The next day I made a decision and called all the other guys and told them I was no longer available. It's been 15 years now, and we're still very happy. But yeah, it was his kind, warm, open personality and intentional communication that hooked me in 3. When it's time for them to leave, You don't want it to happen, not easy to describe, but you just genuinely love their company far more than anybody else you've ever been around. It's obvious and undeniable.